Turn on whenever you're ready.
Alright.
Hello new speech and debaters, my name is Sarab, and welcome to this video series where I'm going to help you guys better understand the basics of congressional debate. Congressional debate is what it sounds like, mimicking what the guys in Congress do on a regular basis. Aside from the basic rules of order, which we'll discuss in a later video, each speech is made up of an introduction, 3 key points, and a succinct conclusion, totaling to about 3 minutes. You will make the speeches in affirmation or negation of different pieces of mock legislation that is distributed before a tournament. After a speech, there comes a questioning period, where other members of the Congress can rise and question your speech. In this first video, I'm going to show you guys an example of an excellent speech in Congress, and then we'll analyze the strong points. Then we'll look towards the questioning period that follows the speech.
Representatives, by now I think we're all aware that the right choice is not always the popular one. Now I recognize that drones are not perfect, nor are they popular, but we need to do what's right for our constituents. And it's because drone strikes are the most advantageous option for our country as a whole that I ask you all to negate this legislation for the following 3 contentions. First, because drones are a very effective counter-terrorist method. Second, because of the lack of feasible alternatives. And finally, because we can improve drone technology instead of just removing it. So first we need to understand the effectiveness of drones, something which Representative Pusiliti clearly misunderstands. Now since Barack Obama has been in office, drone strikes had killed a total of 3,300 terrorist operatives in Pakistan and Yemen, 50 of whom were senior al-Qaeda and Taliban leaders. Now according to the Brookings Institution, Osama bin Laden himself warned other al-Qaeda officials that losing experienced leaders is extremely detrimental because they're replaced by people with less experience who make costly mistakes. Now, the Stanford Research Institute states that the existence of drones has actually harmed terrorist organizations in Pakistan and Yemen's ability to communicate and recruit. Now, to avoid drones, terrorist groups are trying to avoid using any sort of electronic communications as well as gathering in large groups, which means that leaders cannot effectively give orders, and training on a large scale is nearly impossible. So because of the existence of drones, the entire command structure of terrorist organizations has become a liability instead of an asset, and that's a hugely positive impact. So Representative Pusiliti, despite your misgivings, you cannot challenge the fact that drones are effective. Now second, we need to understand that we don't have any feasible alternatives to using drone strikes. Now I recognize that they're not perfect, but they are far better than the other options we have available. Now people are always quick to bring up civilians killed by drones, while completely ignoring the fact that civilians are killed all the time by human soldiers. It happens all the time. Now the New York Times defended drone strikes on the grounds that because drone pilots can observe targets far in advance, they can better identify terrorists and be more sure of carrying out strikes when civilians will not be in the way. Now also keep in mind that if we don't use drones, we either have to send our troops and risk American lives to carry out these missions, or leave the matter to the governments in these countries, whom, according to the Brookings Institution, often torture and kill innocent people and indiscriminately bomb highly populated areas without regard for civilian life. So they're far worse than using drone strikes, and that's why I think that we need to turn to drones as the most feasible alternative. Now finally, we need to understand that although drone technology is not perfect right now, it is improving and it can further improve, so we shouldn't abandon this very beneficial technology. Now I realize that drones make mistakes, but we need to keep in mind their benefits. And contrary to what Representative Pusiliti said about civilian death rates increasing, from 2008 to 2011, we saw a 43% decrease in the proportion of drone victims who were civilians, which shows that the technology is clearly improving. Now the technology can be improved further, and we can further decrease the amount of civilian life being lost so that these can be even more effective than they already are. So in conclusion, Representatives, because drone strikes are so effective, and because they're far more effective than other alternatives, and because we can further improve this drone technology, I ask you all to negate this legislation. Thank you.
Okay, this speech was very strong, because it not only clearly demonstrated that she knew her way around this topic, but it also demonstrated that she had a mastery, and that she was able to argue against a previous speech that was given. Next, let's take a look at the questioning period that followed this speech.
Always do. Representative Pusiliti.
Alright, what is your response to how much these drones usually cost?
Representative, I don't think that cost should be in the equation because it's what's safest for our American people and it's what's best to counteract terrorism, so I don't think we can put a price tag on human life.
Representative New.
Do you have any statistics showing how many civilians are actually killed in ground strikes as opposed to drone strikes?
Representative, it's hard to find statistics on that because people don't report when soldiers kill civilians because we like soldiers, and people are always quick to point out the flaws in drones. So we don't have statistics on it, but we have to look to wars such as Vietnam and the My Lai massacre. It happens all the time, and so human soldiers are not any better than drones.
Representative Zelensky.
Over what time span will these 3,300 terrorists killed that you mentioned in your speech?
Representative, that was since Obama took office.
Representative Singh.
Yes, thank you. How many lives are innocent civilians worth for killing, let's say, one Al-Qaeda member?
Well, Representative, what we need to understand is that we're killing less civilians by using drones than we would be if we left these matters up to the governments of Yemen and Pakistan, because these governments are so brutal towards civilians. So it's really better for the civilians and it's better for our people, and that's why we need drones.
Representative, what's your last name, Allison? Allison.
Do you agree that peace is a better solution?
Representative, I don't think that peace is a feasible option in the modern world. While I wish that we could just avoid war entirely, we have to fight wars in order to keep the peace in the long run, and so I think that drones are the best way to carry out these missions.
Representative Pugliese.
Representative Sutton, what is your response for the justification for killing millions of innocent civilians, even if you say that they aren't as substantial?
Well, Representative, we're killing less civilians by using drones than we are by using human soldiers. So it's better to kill less civilians than to kill more civilians, and that's why drones are beneficial.
Representative Taint. Sit. Representative Pugliese.
Representative Sutton, well, you keep mentioning that we're going to further the current process of drones. How are we actually going to be doing that?
Well, Representative, as scientists continue to work on drones and they continue to engineer them, we can make them more efficient and we can make them more effective in determining which targets they want to hit. And so the civilian casualty rates are going to continue to decrease.
That is 2 minutes. That is the end of the cross-examination period.
Notice the system of how questioning is performed, and how it is an excellent time for you to debate others in an open form setting to further prove your point. Don't worry, I know it looks difficult, but remember, practice makes perfect, and that you will not be this good in a day. Practice as much as you can whenever you get a chance, and this speech will be a more easy goal to obtain. Alright, now go to my next video where we will discuss the intro of a speech in more depth.